Welcome back to Woke Tik Toks. Yay! On today's adventure, we have non-binary stuffed animals, a person telling you should be the friend who's too woke, another telling you not to have kids, and a woman complaining about getting existential dread from having to answer an email in her federal job about what she did this week. Yeah, I'm getting existential dread, and I'm getting it just from the thought of having to react to these videos. So let's do it together.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
Guys, before we get into today's video, please like and subscribe. Yes, I told you, we're going to be experiencing some existential dread together. And in that existential dread, we must ask ourselves some questions. What is our existence really about? What gives life meaning? For many of you, it's going to be creating family, having children. Well, according to one leftist, we should not even be considering that. Let's watch.
I hate to say it, but I feel like if you live in America and you're still having kids and getting pregnant, you're just selfish. These kids are not going to have a future. So I don't know why y'all keep getting pregnant. It's honestly so confusing to me. They're taking away the Department of Education. Having kids is unaffordable if you're not rich. Look at what the hospitals are charging these moms is actually ridiculous. Nobody is doing anything about climate change. So who knows what type of world they'll even be living. Like, will they even have oxygen at that point? Like, for real, like, I'm being honest. And what if your kid turns out to be gay or trans? Like, come on. And the only reason the government and the JD Vance and Trump are pushing for people who have kids is not because they want more families. They want a workforce. They can tell that less people are having kids, meaning that'll be a smaller workforce. Like, come on, use your brain. And even college is extremely unaffordable. And they're making it even harder to be able to take out student loans and have things that make it more accessible for people who can't afford college to go. Therefore, your kids are going to be the ones working at McDonald's and all these other jobs like that in grocery stores because they won't be able to get jobs that requires a degree because they won't be able to afford one. But maybe I'm just pessimistic. I don't know. I don't care. I just feel like if you're having kids in this political environment in America, you're setting up your children for failure before they're even born. And that's my piece.
Okay. What an interesting line of thinking. First of all, for all of human history, we can point out things that are happening at any given moment that make us feel weary about the future of human civilization and where our kids are going to be. And through all of that, humans have managed to reproduce and create families and find joy and fulfillment and prosperity in doing so. So that's just a fact that's going to be consistent all throughout our existence and is consistent to this day. And we are now living in the most progressive point of human civilization ever. Now, many would argue we've maybe passed the line of progress and are now regressing, but that's a bit of commentary for another time. She says one of the reasons she's really questioning whether or not she wants to have kids is the Department of Education being abolished, possibly? Does all your faith lie in the federal government, and what they're doing dictates whether or not you create a family and whether or not you have kids? Now, I don't agree with many of the arguments she made in this video. One, for example, being that if you have a gay kid, there's going to be any issues for that kid growing up in the future of the United States of America. But I digress. Really, what you're allowing is your view of the world and this pessimistic, oppressive view that you have of it to dictate everything that you do moving forward. And if these are valid issues that you feel need to be tackled from a left-leaning perspective, why not focus on tackling those issues so that you can bring children into the world and you can have that fulfilling lifestyle of being a mother and creating a family? Unless it's something you already don't want and you're trying to utilize your worldview to justify the fact that you already don't want children. And I think that's really what's at the heart of this. We're going to have a lot of young women who at least claim in this moment in time that they want to be childless, that they don't want to create families. And instead of just living in that choice for themselves, they have to point at the people who do and say, you are selfish, you are harming the world, and you are harming the children that you're bringing into this world. And if that's the argument you're going to make, you're going to have to look back at every single person who has ever had children ever in a tumultuous time in history, and I guess accuse them of being selfish human beings who just wanted to, I don't know, create mini-me's. Of course, we should all think about the environment that we are bringing kids into, and we want to think about how we can protect our kids in certain ways and have them experience things in others. But to look at people who choose to have children in any time in human history and call them selfish for doing so doesn't quite make sense to me. We are human beings, after all, and it's one of our main functions to create other human beings, okay? And she said, maybe I'm a little pessimistic. Maybe she's the friend who's too woke. But apparently, that's exactly what you want to be. Let's watch this next one.
I don't want to be the friend who's too woke. Okay. What the cool. I do. Sorry, some of y'all are scared of intellectual conversations like so much. Like anything that makes you have to think for more than 2 seconds scares the out of you. That's not my problem. That's not anyone else's problem. Maybe pick up a book or something. Maybe travel. I don't know what it is you need to do to break past that, but you need to figure that out if you are an adult in this world.
Woo! There is nothing like leftist condescension. And these two videos are actually linked to one another, believe it or not. She's making the choice. She wants to be the friend who's too woke. This other young woman's making the choice. She doesn't want to have children. And instead of living in that choice, you point to the people who say, I don't want to be that, and go, you must be stupid. You're just not ready to have intellectual conversations. Maybe you need to travel. Maybe you need to read up. Or maybe these are just individuals who have chosen a different life path than yours, and we don't want to hyper-intellectualize and create some sort of system of oppression out of every single thing that we experience in life. And we've gone through an era of being the friend who's too woke. I myself used to be the friend who was too woke, and it was miserable. The energy I was giving off to the world was miserable. Everything was a microaggression. Everything was something that needed to be analyzed from the perspective of oppressed and oppressor. Everything was something that needed to be unpacked through the lens of intersectionality so that we could have a discussion about the oppressive factors that we're facing in society at any given moment. And I would speak in that same slam poet cadence too. Yes, very cringe. So when people say they don't want to be the friend that's too woke, maybe they're onto something. And if you want to be that, cool. But I gotta say, the energy that I just got from you in the TikTok was not all that positive, and not necessarily somebody that I would want to have as a friend at the moment. Not that you'd want to have me, because you are the friend that's too woke. Okay, moving on. Here's another one.
One of the reasons that I know that the gender binary is made up, other than just believing people, is Patches. Patches is my beloved childhood toy, who I just found in the back of a closet. And I was having this memory of my mom being like, well, is Patches a girl? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, Patches is Patches. And she was like, well, there's like a rhinestone collar. And I was like, oh, I guess that's true. But then like later thinking about it myself and being like, I don't think Patches is a girl. And then I also don't think Patches is a boy. And you know what? It was never an issue. Did you bring Patches? Is Patches coming? Oh, look, she brought Patches. Pronouns were never a problem. My first interaction with a non-binary icon was Patches. And I'm just saying, like, kids have the capacity to understand it. I think kids oftentimes also want another option. You know what I mean? So, cheers to Patches.
Kids want a lot of things. Kids want to run around a kitchen island with 6 knives, calling themselves Edward Scissorhands. Kids do a lot of things all the time. And we don't just listen to every single thing that comes out of a kid's mouth. Because they have some sort of, I don't know, omniscience that they understand everything? No, that's just not how it works. And the reason you maybe didn't run into issues with your stuffed animal and referring to your stuffed animal as Patches and not giving the stuffed animal pronouns is because we rarely have to function in society with pronounless stuffed animals. So I can't imagine that's going to create any problems for you. Did Patches ever have to go to a pregnancy screening? Did Patches ever have to be looked at by a doctor? Did Patches ever try to join a sports team? Did Patches ever commit a crime and have to be placed in a facility that is dictated by the biological sex that they were born with? Was Patches ever born? No. So that's the reason you can have a non-binary stuffed animal, and it's not going to give you any issues, functioning in society. And while it might be nice to sort of extrapolate that to human beings and say that the gender binary doesn't exist and here's why, because I was able to accept this stuffed animal in so many ways and it never created a problem, it does create problems when human beings step out of the gender binary and start creating random identities that are in no way in relation to the reality that we're all living in. And that's just a fact. We can talk about it instead of making a stuffed animal analogy that doesn't quite hit the mark. But I do appreciate the effort. I do appreciate where her heart is in making the argument and wanting to be accepting of all things and anything, much like children would be with their stuffed animals. Sorry, guys. Had to say it. Okay, this next one is 1 week of being a Trans woman. Can't wait. It's giving Dylan Mulvaney.
Been 1 full week of being a trans woman, so I figured we'd talk about 3 things that I've learned. Estrogen is one hell of a couple days this week where, like, if someone was breathing the wrong way behind me, it was like World War III in my brain. I had to be like, okay, babe, like, let's pull over and let's just take a beat. Let's calm down. Or 2, women's pant sizes make 0 sense. Literally, there seems to be no consistency between them. I don't know how anyone online shops as a woman. What do you do? Lastly, the TikTok queer community and just like the group of allies that have come across my page in the last week have been some of the kindest, nicest people I think I've ever interacted with in my life. There are a lot of good people out there despite what's happening in the US right now. And I'm so thankful that people are here and that they're following along with this crazy journey of mine. I promise to keep you guys updated.
Give me a minute. Give me a minute. How long are we going to keep doing this for? How long are we waiting? This is not a woman. I'm going to be very, very clear about that. You know, I can appreciate a seemingly homosexual man coming forward and trying to talk about issues that women maybe face in their lives, menial issues, like, I guess, purchasing pants. Because how do you guys do that? And it's very similar to what Dylan Mulvaney did with his first day in the life of being a woman. He played into all of these female stereotypes of sending a strongly worded letter and then choosing not to send it, or saying you're fine when you're really not fine, being on an emotional roller coaster where you're crying and then you're not crying. And let me remind you guys, these are all stereotypes of female behavior. And that's what these men are using in order to create these characters and avatars that they are now living in as trans women. Now, I don't know how much estrogen would affect you in 1 week of being on the hormone. I can imagine it can manipulate your emotions quite significantly as women deal with ever-changing hormones on any given day through our 28th cycle. But this sort of immediate push to, I felt so emotional and so irritable and everything was bothering me that I almost had to pull over to the side of the road to gather my emotions, seems like a play into a female caricature rather than the actual female experience. And when you play that up for the sake of being treated like a woman or for the sake of referring to yourself as a trans woman, for many women, that's going to be acceptable. And I believe that's the allies that this person is finding in their comment section and is finding on TikTok. For me, it's not. Of course, we have emotional women, we have less emotional women, and we all deal with our emotions in different ways. But to see a man just play into that and act like he is a woman, or because he's experiencing these things, it makes him closer to womanhood, just really grinds my gears. Let me tell you that.
You know what really grinds my gears?
Because guess what? You can have emotional and less emotional men, and they're experiencing these things on any given day, and that's totally fine. None of what he just described makes him a woman or a trans woman at that. So best of luck. Best of luck. Okay. Next video. This one's interesting. We haven't heard from like PETA or like the animal protester types in quite some time, but this one is what we call a poorly timed protest, according to this TikTok.
Misinformed, poorly timed. Can we engage conversation? What brand?
Guys, mind your backs, please. Traffic's coming through.
What brand is it that you know is live blocking at London Fashion Week? There isn't one. There isn't one. There isn't one. If you were well informed, you wouldn't be doing this outside an independent, sustainable designer.
So I'm going to go ahead and pause and explain to you guys what's happening here. A woman is protesting with a sign. She's screaming with like fake feathers, like a fake goose or something around her, and she is protesting live plucking of birds and animals for the purpose of fashion design and fashion creations. And this guy is aptly pointing out that this is not taking place at London Fashion Week where she's protesting.
I appreciate your opinion, and I'm willing to have a civilized conversation outside of work.
But why are you doing it?
We are here. This is just how things go. We're here.
It's not how things go. It's not how things go at all.
Could we have a
it's
quick
just
chat
wrong.
with you? How are you feeling about what you're seeing today?
Misinformed, poorly timed, with a brilliant message at the wrong time. There's a fine line between activism and campaigning, and a lot of activism deters people from being on the right side. This is London Fashion Week, that is the hub of sustainable fashion. It's the first fashion week out of the Big Four to adopt sustainability credentials, and instead of supporting designers that are doing the right thing, we're now giving a message at the wrong time. You show me on schedule a brand that is live plucking feathers, and I'll be all for it. But London Fashion Week works with the government to adopt better practices for the Fashion Network in the UK.
So there you go. And this is so often what happens with the super radical protests, sometimes on the right, but a lot of times on the left, is there's not a lot of forethought put into what you're doing. It's just this visceral feeling that you have towards wanting to make change or wanting to be the center of attention or wanting to be seen as somebody who's promoting change. So you go to a place without much research and you start protesting, come to find out you're in the wrong place at the wrong time and you're actually hindering your own cause. You are stopping people from being able to have access to sustainable fashion that is going to get rid of the sort of abuse of animals that you are protesting right here on the street in the wrong place. And instead of listening to somebody who's saying, maybe you need to take this elsewhere or do a little bit of research, somebody who is on your side, they are more beholden to the idea that they are activists in this very moment than they are to the actual truth. I experienced this as a leftist myself. These women are experiencing it, and you hope they wake up, but you'll find that really they're empowered by the process of being there, not the outcome of the work that they're doing. They are empowered by the hatred they feel towards these practices and the boost in ego that they get from these protests, and not by the actual truth. We witnessed this at Trump's State of the Union, where you have Democrats who are refusing to stand up or to clap for things that should be bipartisan, that should be enjoyed by all. Maybe a 13-year-old boy with brain cancer who's being told he's going to be part of the Secret Service, we should clap for, regardless of our party. Because don't all parties use the Secret Service? Don't we all want to cheer on a little boy who's going through a struggle that so many in the United States go through? But because you are more beholden to your act of protest than you are to truth, than you are to your own sense of compassion and humanity, you don't clap. You just sit there with a straight face. And this is exactly what's happening in this video. The through lines are crazy. Now we have a last TikTok to get to. This is a federal employee who got that now famous, infamous, whatever you want to call it, Elon Musk email that says, let us know what you did this week. And if you don't respond, you might just lose your job.
Today I responded to the email that we received as federal employees asking us to report 5 things that we accomplished last week. I'm not worried about my 5 things. I have plenty of things to report. I did plenty of work last week. But the feeling of just absolute existential dread that I felt typing out a response to that email is something that I wish I could convey to everyone, because it felt like such a glimpse into the reality that they are trying to create. And it was terrifying. It felt like, you will do what I say or else. The email that we received did not say that failure to respond would be taken as a resignation, but the post on X did say that. And leadership at my agency is pretty much like, the email's authentic, but we don't know if the threat is or is not. We are going to respond, but kind of left it up to each of us to decide what to do. We have received more emails about all of the bull going on with Doge and Elon and all of this federal employee stuff that I've spent more time in the last couple of weeks navigating these emails, going to these town hall meetings, going to these other meetings, making sure that so that the leadership can break down what's happening and tell us how we need to respond and tell us what the is going on and tell us, oh, you might lose your job because when your FTE runs, there's so many things that they're having to convey to us. And so nothing that actually should normally be getting done and accomplished is being done or accomplished because we're all so busy trying to navigate this hellscape that is happening.
I have a question. Why is it this difficult? Why do you have to have multiple meetings with leadership to figure out how to answer an email that asks you what you've done this week if something is afoot? And I've seen even a few Republicans come at Elon Musk and say that he should not be the person who is sending out these emails, and they should in fact tell the supervisors and managers of these individual employees to go ahead and do that job themselves, because these individuals are used to dealing with specific supervisors and managers. But when you have this much bureaucracy and you cannot tell who's doing what and who's doing their job well, somebody above them needs to go ahead and check this out and inquire and get these emails, which should be the simplest thing you've probably ever done at your job, to let people know what you've done in a week. At previous jobs that I worked at, I would be ecstatic to let my boss know what I've been doing for the week, ecstatic to go in for a performance review, because I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should get paid a little more. Maybe we need to recap. In fact, many times I'd be like, can we do this a little bit sooner? Because we need to get the ball rolling here. But if you have existential dread from having answer an email about what you did this week, there's a problem. And if your managers and supervisors have to meet with each of you to sort of disseminate information about what you should put in this email, you guys have a problem. And it signals to me that maybe something is either not being done well or something's being covered up in this process of having to decide how you answer this email. Very, very strange.
That is waste. That and the fact that the studies we work on, if we are worried that they might be considered, something that will lose funding, what's the point in working on it now? And has the last year or 2, 3 years of work we've done on it been for naught? That's wasteful. This whole thing is an exercise for them to show us how much power they have and how little we have, and how we must do what they say. And it's so insane because, again, who the is Elon? Like, and how does he get to?
I actually like what she said there, and that what they're doing is to show how much power they have and how little power we have. I think she's somewhat onto something. What they're showing you is how much power the American people have. The American people voted for, a mandate through with this last election. And the mandate was, I want to get rid of these unelected bureaucrats. And this is part of the step in figuring out who those individuals are and what you guys are up to within the federal government. So there is a power shift happening and a new power dynamic being established, but I don't think it's the one she thinks.
Decide that he is king of the federal employees, king of HR at the Office of Personnel Management. And he gets to tell us, send this email or you're fired, like you lose your job. There's no rationale here that makes it make any sense outside of, look how much power I have and you better f***ing listen or your livelihood is gone. The 2 million people that are going to have to respond to this email, if they choose to, are they going to go through 2 million emails to make sure that they were honest, to make sure that they were authentic, to make sure that the items listed out were relevant to the people's jobs, to make sure that the person, like, there's so many things that would have to happen for them to, like, actually legitimately go through these emails, and that's not going to happen because it just, like, it can't happen.
Okay, so then what are you worried about? If you think you can just lie and be inauthentic and then just put whatever you want in this email and send it in, then why are we having multiple meetings and freaking out and saying we have the existential dread and having to answer this email? When what should happen is you are honest and you are authentic and you actually have things to point to as far as projects that you're working on, whether or not those projects are going to be discontinued or not. Make it make sense, y'all.
And again, like, it's just a flex. It's just, you need to know who's in charge. And this is one of the ways we're making you aware. And the feeling that I felt responding to that email was such a glimpse into a possible future here, a probable future here if we don't do something about it. It felt so scary and so heartbreaking. It felt much like I would imagine living in a place like what I always imagined North Korea to be like, where the energy is, yes, master, your wish is my command.
No more. Cut it off. Cut the show. Cut the North Korea, babe. If somebody truly believes this and is in the field of research and study, you might need to be fired. You might need to be fired. You might need to go do some research and studying of your own before you get hired again by the federal government, because comparing that to North Korea is just so out of left field that I don't even know how to respond to that. I'll just say, read up on North Korea, Kim Jong-un, see how that's going for the people who are living there, except you can't, because you're not going to hear from them. You can't hear from them here in the United States after they've defected by escaping the country, and that is certainly not what's taking place with you as a federal government employee here in the United States, having to answer an email where you simply let them know what you've done for the week. Could not be an easier ask to keep your job on the other end of answering than tell me what you did this week. And if you have this much existential dread and anxiety about it, it might be because you aren't doing jack shit. Okay? Guys, that's the last TikTok. Let me know how you feel about it in the comments down below. Did you survive? Did you make it to the end? If you did, comment a little heart emoji down below and let me know that you made it through. If you like this video, like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time I post a video for you guys, which is every single day. And if you disagree with anything I said in this video, do get out, but do so respectfully. I encourage healthy debate on this channel, so let's keep it respectful. Guys, with that being said, I will see you tomorrow. Bye.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.